Welcome, everyone. We're very excited to have you here. I am Cristina Arango, member of the SPC, and I'm very glad to have you here. This is our second session of 3 that we're having this week about mitigating and adapting to climate change through sanitary systems. We are very excited about this session. This is going to have a game, a pop quiz, so please be ready to have fun with us this evening. We want to thank our co-conveners, CAF, WhatsApp, and Water Aid for making this happen. And with that said, I am gonna give the floor to Sam, who is going to speak for some time. Thank you very much.
For 8 minutes, I have 8 minutes. You can time me and see if you can hold me to that. Okay, beginning just with the agenda for this session, before I go into that 8-minute presentation. So after that presentation, where we're going to recap the ground that we covered in session 1 yesterday, we're then going to have a pop quiz and an interactive game show where we have case studies. But it's not just going to be case study presentations. We're going to be asking you to engage with that. And then we're going to have an expert panel where we're going to step back and reflect on some of that country level experience. Julian is not with us, unfortunately, so we're going to move in. Oh, sorry, yeah, of course, thank you. Is Julian with us?
Julian, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, Sam.
So can we invite Julian to give some welcoming remarks?
Fantastic. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Can you hear
Yes.
me well? Excellent. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I'm very delighted to deliver some opening remarks at such a significant session in our 3-part series on climate resilient sanitation, which of course we have the pleasure of co-organizing along with our friends of Water Aid and WSUP. And why this session matters? Well, for many reasons. As we all know, climate change is no longer a distant risk. Floods, droughts, extreme storms, and rising sea levels are already disrupting sanitation services, putting human health, ecosystems, and community resilience at risk. And this challenge before us is clear. We need sanitation systems that can withstand shocks, adapt to changing conditions, and continue to serve communities equitably and safely. And globally, just to give some context, and we all know 3.5 billion people still lack access to safely managed sanitation services. Out of this, 1.5 billion people do not even have access to basic services. In Latin America and the Caribbean, the scope where CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean works, more than 3 million people lack access to safely managed sanitation systems. And we know there are also significant challenges in Asia and Africa, particularly in the sub-Saharan region. Sanitation then faces major challenges at a global level. There's no doubt that there has been progress on coverage, but there's still a very long way to go to ensure adequate, sustainable, and resilient services for everyone, particularly in the context of climate change and the growing challenges that affect the most vulnerable communities. And from CAF, we reaffirm our strong commitment to achieving SDG 6. We acknowledge that equitable access to safe drinking water and sanitation is a fundamental human right, and it is an essential condition for sustainable development, social inclusion, and climate resilience. And in such regard, we have taken an active role in global UN platforms on water, including the 2023 UN Water Conference, where we announced a voluntary commitment to increase financing for water security projects through the approval of up to $4 billion in investments during 2023-2026. We are on track of achieving such commitment. And as part of this effort, we're also implementing a water security strategy for the period 2023-2026, which focuses on providing safe, inclusive, and efficient access to both water and sanitation services. In addition to this, and in line with our mandate to become the green bank of the region of Latin America and the Caribbean, we are integrating climate resilience approaches as a cross-sectional dimension for all of our water sector financial and technical assistance operations. And therefore, we're very pleased to promote a seminar on climate resilience sanitation aimed at fostering a comprehensive approach that highlights the relevance of having robust and reliable sanitation systems in the face of impacts on climate change, promoting sanitation, that sanitation is included in national policies and plans such as countries' adaptation plans and NDCs, as well as in sanitation programs and projects. This seminar consists on three sessions. The first focused on science-based evidence. This second session is about interventions that can actually be done to make sanitation systems withstand shocks, adapt to changing conditions, and continue protecting people and the environment. We will also learn and discuss on how to scale up these solutions, emphasizing their benefits, as well as the role of responsibilities of the different stakeholders, including MDBs. And tomorrow, at the third session, we will discuss more specifically how to increase and leverage climate finance for climate resilience sanitation. At CAF, we're very pleased that one of the featured cases will be the Juan Díaz wastewater treatment plant project in Panama, which we have supported technically and financially. And that stands as a regional example which incorporates both adaptation and mitigation elements. This will be followed by two other examples, the Kenya case, which focuses on community-based sanitation and carbon credit generation, and the Bangladesh case, in which a municipal intervention includes a fecal sludge treatment plant that is being used for agricultural purposes. Finally, just to finish, we will listen to reflections about the cases presented, led by members of UNICEF and CAF. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all the participants, highlight the relevance of continuing working together to achieve climate resilience and sustainable sanitation for all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much to Julian for joining us and for sharing those reflections. He set out there the three-part series, of which this is session 2, linked to Panama, which is going to be one of our 3 case studies that we're going to come on to. And just to say, it's a shame that CAF couldn't be with us in person this week, but they've been huge contributors and really valuable partners on this series. So I'm going to now provide a recap of session 1 that Julian mentioned. I have 2 roles actually in this presentation, which is going to be, I think, come across as quite quick because I'm going to be moving through a lot of content. But first of all, recap the evidence base and what we heard yesterday. And then to introduce some of the operational and systems level responses that we'll also be hearing about in the case studies and provide a foundation for those case studies. So beginning here with climate hazards. So we had a presentation yesterday synthesizing the evidence base on sanitation and adaptation. And a key point in that is that there are 5 hazards which are known to have significant impact on sanitation services, systems and behaviors. And you see those on the screen. So flooding, of course, is known to present a risk of overflow of septage from pit latrines and septic tanks. Extreme storms and sea level rise, of course, coastal areas particularly vulnerable to those impacts. Drought and water scarcity can impact on the operations of sanitation systems and present risks of groundwater contamination, and extreme temperatures, which has a specific impact on treatment. We then talked about how to quantify the impact of these hazards and introduce this framework, which again, I ask you to keep in mind. We will come back to this. And if you join us in tomorrow's session again, we'll be looking at this framework, which essentially is a equation of risk equals hazards times exposure times vulnerability. So you can be exposed to a climate hazard but not be vulnerable if you have access to climate resilient sanitation. We really need to be focusing on the populations that are both climate vulnerable and either don't have safely managed sanitation or have that, but it's not climate resilient. That's really where we're focusing these adaptation efforts. And then to underline that sanitation adaptation can be transformative, and there is evidence connecting the impact of climate resilient sanitation with a wide range of other sectors. So, for example, safe treatment and reuse of fecal sludge byproducts can contribute to food security, to energy. The link between sanitation and health is getting stronger all the time in terms of evidence, and there's a link between sanitation and mitigating the risks of water scarcity from climate change through, for example, safe wastewater reuse. Now the more challenging part for me, which is summarizing Barbara's expert presentation on the climate science. First question, are emissions from sanitation important? In one word, Barbara? Yes. And you see here, so that is because they can be accountable, well, they are accountable rather, for a measurable fraction of total anthropogenic carbon, estimated between 2 and 10%. Some really interesting points that we will have to deal with human excreta forever. So this is a source of emissions that is not going to go away completely. Other areas, we may bring them down more, and sanitation may become a bigger aspect of the challenge than it is seen as currently. And also this link between good sanitation and climate resilient sanitation. So reducing emissions would be a characteristic of improved management of sanitation overall, and we need to achieve that. Barbara then presented 3 scopes of emissions, and here you see scope 1. So these are as defined by the World Business Council, and scope 1 relates to emissions from the normal operation of a system, and this is really the most prevalent form of emissions in terms of sanitation. There is also scope 2, which is imported electricity, for example, and then scope 3, which you see in the top right, relating to sanitation, might be substitution of sanitation by byproducts for other more energy-intensive products. But it's really scope 1 where we need to focus primarily. And Barbara set out 3 ongoing challenges, and the key point to take away from this is the evidence base around mitigation in particular is really in flux. You know, it's evolving. There's still a lot that we don't know. We don't yet have a standard categorization of emissions from sanitation. We don't know really what is going on inside sanitation systems relating to methane and nitrous oxide in particular, and measurement is not simple, but there is increasing guidance in this area. And really the recommendation is to engage with experts around measurement of emissions from sanitation systems. And this again is something we will say more about if you're able to join us in tomorrow's workshop. Now into the second part, and I'm going to rapidly introduce some of the responses. So we know that there are strong connections between sanitation and climate change mitigation and adaptation. How then to respond to that? And the document that you see on the right-hand side here is the Annex 3 to the Water Security Sectoral Guide. These are new guidelines that have been developed by Green Climate Fund to support proposals on climate resilient sanitation, and all of the content I'm about to present drawn from these guidelines, and they set out 3 broad areas of operational response. So those might be technical modifications to new or existing infrastructure. Those might be active management, so being proactive, for example, regular emptying or scheduled desludging of pits and septic tanks, and then also building redundancy into sanitation systems so that they're able to cope if some of the systems they rely on are impacted by climate change. I'm going to briefly skip through some of these example sanitation adaptation responses looking across the sanitation service chain. Again, this mapping is in the annex, but you can see around technical modifications, for example, raised latrines or building containment structures that are flood-proof would be a very clear example of a climate resilience modification. Simplified sewers, a model that has been piloted in Kenya, for example, and we're going to hear from Angela Kimani at WASWEB shortly. And then we have examples of active management, again, scheduled or more frequent emptying for on-site sanitation, and examples around building in redundancy. A brief reflection on community involvement. And when we're looking at adaptation, and the annex makes this point very clearly, we also need to be thinking about community consultation, around demand creation activities, around strengthening consumer supply chains. And on sanitation mitigation responses. So a first reflection here is there are 2 broad categories of interventions: those that relate directly to the sanitation system, those that might be seen as very much cross-sectoral, and in some ways outside of the sanitation system, such as reuse of end products. And then to provide a further categorization, the annex highlights 3 key levels of intervention to keep in mind around mitigation. 1, reducing emissions into the environment by getting more fecal waste to treatment more quickly. And the science that we have suggests that is really the key point in terms of reducing emissions. And of course, that also has an adaptation benefit. So if you're looking at flood-proofing facilities, you want to be getting the waste regularly emptied. That has a mitigation and an adaptation benefit. And there are interventions that have those co-benefits. This is not only mitigation or adaptation. Modifying sanitation systems to achieve operational efficiency and promoting reuse of end products as part of circular economy approaches. I'm not going to cover these in any detail, but this is to snapshot the content in the annex. Again, this is from Barbara's team at University of Leeds, looking at these different types of mitigation response, categorizing those according to infrastructure modifications, again, along the sanitation service chain, and also providing the level of impact of those interventions. Examples around scale and management operations, and examples around governance and regulatory modifications. And that brings me to my final slide, which is to emphasize the importance also of systems-level interventions. So we've just shown a wide range of operational responses, but how then to enable the scaling up of those interventions, and that involves policy, institutional, regulatory, financing interventions that can enable the mainstreaming of climate-resilient sanitation. And we give some examples here around climate policy, around building service provider capacity, mainstreaming CRS into regulatory frameworks, building flexibility into planning, financing, regulatory frameworks, and finally strengthening frameworks to support the integration of sanitation with wider basic services and urban development. There's research in this area, actually, that World Bank will present tomorrow morning, and this was really a key point that came out of that research. In urban contexts, climate-resilient sanitation involves integration of sanitation with wider urban development. Okay, I've covered a lot of ground quite quickly, but we're going to have time to digest that, I hope, and keep coming back to these points as we move through. And also going to do a straw poll now to see actually how much you did digest. So over to you, Francisco.
Thank you so much, Sam. I suppose most of you are already out of school for some time, but I think it's always the time for the pop quiz. And I don't think you expected that there's going to be a pop quiz, but yeah, we want to see how much you actually remembered. Before we start, also going to ask our lovely technical staff if you can please once again refresh the presentation on the Mentimeter. Thank you so much. And then I'm going to ask you, just a quick show of hand, how many of you were in our online session yesterday? Okay, pretty nice. So I think people who were here yesterday, thank you, are in a little bit of an advantage because, of course, they heard some of this information twice. But yeah, we're just going to test how much you actually brought out of these little presentations. So now it's time for this little pop quiz. So please, not like in school, but get your phones ready so you can scan a QR code that's going to now appear on your screen. With that QR code, you will be taken to Mentimeter, and from there we will do a little the pop quiz. So I'm going to give you a minute or a second to actually scan it. I think that once we reveal the Mentimeter, you should have still a chance to scan the QR code. But since I'll still see some, oh, we're already there. Okay, yeah, it's there in the corner. Perfect. And it seems that there are still some phones up. Perfect. Look at that, a little colorful bunch. Right. So yeah, it seems that we're all almost ready. So we can go to the first question. So which of the following is typically the largest source of greenhouse emissions from urban sanitation systems? Oh, so the first one is vacuum trucks that empty the fecal sludge. I think on your phone you're going to see it a bit better. So we have some answers coming in. Oh, perfect, and we have most of the people answering correctly. I think that deserves a big round of applause. All right, well, it seems that you were paying attention. All right, we can go to the next one. Ooh, and this is a multiple choice. Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah, which is the most important hazard, which we haven't said, but we really want to.
So instead of, sort of going through the actual question, at least we uncovered which hazard you consider the most most hazardous. So I think that's also very interesting reveal. If you want to direct your anger towards someone, you can do it towards me or towards Mentimeter. I think we sort of half and half shared the blame for this one, so sorry about that. Oh yeah, I mean, we actually have you here, and we don't need to interact just through screen. So if anyone wants to shout out now which of these 5 there would be, you can go right ahead.
So that you arrived at the right answer. So sea level rise, drought and water scarcity, extreme temperatures, extreme storms. So thank you to the one person that selected extreme storms and flooding.
And also very good that no one selected melting glaciers or wildfires. We sort of mentioned that both of them might be somewhat associated, but definitely not the key hazards. Perfect. Thank you very much. So let's move to our next question. There is one. Oh no. Okay. Again, Mentimeter. Please direct the anger towards Mentimeter. Wait. Is the Mentimeter over? It seems like, who cares? Okay. Didn't work the best, so we can go back to the presentation, because actually this was just a little test, and we see that the technological quizzes are not really our strongest suit, but that's okay, because what's going to happen right now is more of an actual game show in this very room. People who are online can, of course, also participate. You can type your answers in the chat. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome our amazing game show host, Leslie Paris from Vortrade. Come on stage. Oh, no.
We are so pleased that you are here with us today to play What Would You Do?, where we are going to present you with a challenge. You will vote on what you think the solution was based on 3 options, and then we will reveal what the real option was, and voices that were involved in that will tell you more about it. You won't be hearing from me about it. So, it's actually more dangerous than it looks and than you would think. But safety is very, very important at all different levels. So to start us off, and I'm going to rotate around here, or I can do this. We are going to start off in Panama City. Back in the 2000s, Panama City, especially areas like Juan Díaz, was experiencing rapid urban growth without adequate sanitation infrastructure. Many households relied on poorly maintained septic systems or informal discharges, leading to contamination of rivers, mangroves, and the Bay of Panama. The high water table in the area meant that inadequate disposal systems posed a serious public health risk, especially during flooding events, which were becoming more and more frequent and intense because of climate change. Authorities face the challenge of improving urban sanitation, protecting ecosystems, and adapting to a more extreme climate, all within the context of financial limitations and high social pressures. So what strategy did Panama decide to undertake? Did they construct a decentralized wastewater collection system in each neighborhood without centralized treatment, prioritizing low-cost, short-term solutions? Did they design a master plan, then build sewer networks and a wastewater treatment plant with high energy recovery from sludge? Or did they choose to shut down all existing on-site systems and mandate connection to the sewer network without providing technical or financial support to households? All right, come on, guys. What do we think? What do we think? What are we voting for? Come on, come on. So I hear some C out there.
I think I heard a B.
I heard A. I heard A. I heard B. B. We've heard A, B. We've heard all of them. Okay. Survey says, hey! They designed a master plan. Now, we have someone online who is part of that master plan design who is going to actually tell us what they really did and how it actually worked and was financed. I turn it over to our colleague from Panama, Maria Fernanda. She will be joining.
Yeah.
Yes, you're there. Yay! Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Well, yes, fortunately, we did B. My name is Maria Fernanda de Mendoza. I am a civil and environmental engineer from Florida State University, and I have an executive MBA from the Instituto de Empresas in Madrid. But currently, as Leslie said, I am the general coordinator for the Panama Sanitation Program, which is under the Ministry of Health. And it was created 21 years ago, exactly when we were facing this sanitation problem in Panama. The Panama Sanitation Program, as I said, is under the Ministry of Health, and it oversees the administrative and operational wastewater management of 4 districts in the country of Panama. In the city, these are Panama, San Miguelito, Arreján, y La Chorrera. So we don't cover nationally the whole country. We only cover these 4 districts. And it's a big challenge. And 21 years ago, there was no real infrastructure like the one we have today, thanks to the financial support of our friends from CAF, Development Bank, and other financial sources that made not only this master plan possible, but the heart of this master plan a reality. That is the Juan Díaz wastewater treatment plant, and is what I have the honor to present to all of you today. So here in this picture, we can see Panama and the water treatment plant in Juan Díaz as the masterpiece. As you can see, it's very close to the bay because 20 years ago, all the discharge from wastewater from buildings will go directly into the rivers and it will end up in the bay, and our bay was very contaminated. It was extremely contaminated. So it was hazard for our population. So as you can see in this picture, first, we have 2 models in this wastewater treatment plant. The first model is farther from the screen, and the second model is closer. They are mirrors in the process and the technology that I'm going to go into detail later on. But the difference is the clarifiers in model 1 are circular, and the clarifiers in model 2 are rectangular. And that was only due to space restrictions. The circular clarifiers take more space, and the rectangular less space. So now I'm going to tell you more about this wastewater treatment plant. If I can change the slide, perfect. So here I'm only showing the model 1, but as I said, the process in both models are the same. And this wastewater treatment plant is the largest and most advanced in Central America. So we're very proud of it. It has been operating since May 2013. So it took us 12 years to design the master plan, start building all the sewage, all the pumping stations, and the plant, and to have the first model ready. Now we have 2 models with the capacity to treat 5.5 cubic meters per second. That is equivalent to 5,500 liters per second. That was the second. The plant uses a biological system where microorganisms consume the organic matter. This process requires oxygen and leads to water clarification, separating sludge from the treated effluent. It also features sludge recirculation and gas recovery that we'll see later on. So right now I'm gonna try to resume the process for treatment in 5 steps. Here in this picture, you can see in yellow the modular flow distribution chambers. Here is where all the wastewater from the sanitation pipes get and distributes the flow between both modules, 1 and 2, as we saw in the previous picture. Then it goes through piping to pre-treatment that you can see in the bright pink. The pre-treatment process is designed to remove larger solids and lighter material like grease and grit from the wastewater. And then it goes to the biological reactors. And here's where the magic happens. Biological reactors use microorganisms such as bacteria to naturally degrade and break down organic matter. Here is where the air injection happens and the bacteria get really happy and full with air, and then goes to the settling tanks that we see in blue, where solids settle at the bottom and the water rises. And finally, in purple, we see the serpentine type of chamber is the disinfectation contact chamber. Here, we by norm in Panama still add chlorine to disinfect the wastewater to kill diseases before it's discharged to the Juan River. Now after treatment, we discharge it back to the river, and that has some positive impacts, but we're also working really hard with the Municipio of Panama, the local authorities, in an agreement that help us to let us reuse this treated water for irrigation purposes and maybe a concrete power plant, because we know circular economy activities like this are very important. So I have been sitting in this chair for a year, and for me, that's one of the main goals for the program, to be able to reuse all this treated water. Also, as we said, it is crucial to talk about, maybe can you help me change the slide, please? Thank you. The project finance. So this type of project could not have happened in a country like Panama without the proper financing, because financing is one of the key pillars for the success of a public wastewater treatment plant. Because these projects are usually large, capital intensive, and have long lifespans. Right now, we serve a population of 700,000 people, and it's expected by year 2050 to serve 1,548,000,000 people. And that's more. Right now in Panama, we're about 4 million people in the whole country. So this power plant will benefit a great percentage of our whole population. The design and build cost around, no, not around, exactly 134 million, and the operation and maintenance 113.5 million dollars, in a total of $248.1 million. So this is a very capital intensive project, as I said. And without the financial sources like the CAP Development Bank and other banks that help us, also the national government that made these financial instruments possible, this could not have happened. As I said before, the Model 1 started operation in 2013 and Model 2 started operation in 2022. So it took us 9 more years to finish both models to have our installed capacity of 5.5 cubic meters per second. Right now, both phases or both models are 100% complete, and we are in the phase of operation and maintenance. And you're welcome to come to Panama and visit our wastewater treatment plant. We have a Centro Interactivo, an interactive center for public invitation and awareness. So we are all very welcome, if you're around Panama, to contact me and come visit our wastewater treatment plant.
So we are so thankful for that invitation. I do think we need to move on in the game show to the next challenge. We have learned so much. I have a new reason to go to Panama. I don't know about any of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so thankful. And now we are going to go to a different part of the world, right? This is a rapid world tour, not just, we don't, sanitation covers a lot of different shapes and forms. So let me take you over to Asia. In 2015, Sakipur, a town in Bangladesh, had a population of around 30,000 people. In the absence of sewerage systems, households were using latrines connected to pits or septic tanks. Half of the toilets were serviced by informal emptiers and disposed in the environment, basically nearby fields and water bodies without treatment. The other half of the town never got their toilets emptied, and that was a sign that the pits themselves were leaking because they never actually filled up all the way. And we know that that is definitely unsafe given the high water table in many areas. The town also had inadequate management of solid waste. This situation represented an important public health hazard, especially during the ever more frequent and unpredictable floods. Sounds like a pattern, which multiplied the spread of fecal pathogens throughout the town and beyond. All right, guys, what do we think Sakipur in Bangladesh did? Did they build a wastewater treatment plant and sewerage network and connect all the households to it? Potentially. Did they introduce strict rules and regulations on the emptying, transport, and treatment of fecal sludge, along with incentives for the police to fine every household or emptier that is caught? Or did they improve emptying services, build a fecal sludge treatment plant, and co-compost fecal waste and organic waste to sell it to nearby farmers? C. All right, I hear a lot of C. I hear a lot of C. All right, survey says, hey, we're on it. Excellent. Woohoo! And we have the privilege of having in the room at least one person who is deeply involved in that process, and they are going to come up on the stage right now and share it with us. I welcome my colleague, Yasin Arafat from WaterAid Bangladesh. Woohoo!
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yasin Arafat. I'm currently working as a technical expert at WaterAid Bangladesh. So I will be presenting the case we have done in Bangladesh, in Shokipur municipality. So it's a small town. It's near to the capital city of Dhaka. But the the intense of the sanitation situation was there. So we started off in 2015, and we started off with the baseline of the whole city, and the initiative was led by the local government. So the municipal authority actually led the initiation of the project, and from the baseline, we understood the context and the overall sanitation systems present there, and then we planned and designed a overall sanitation service delivery model. So we started off with emptying services. So we initiated emptying services throughout the whole town, and parallelly we started construction of a FSTP, fecal sludge treatment plant, with co-composting component in it, and it is one of the first of its kind in Bangladesh. And sorry, I did not change the slide. So it's one of its kind in Bangladesh, and we also collaborated with the different sectors for the co-compost to produce. So we collaborated with the private sector who collect waste from households, and also the Department of Agriculture Extension, who creates the linkage with the local farmers. So what we did, we sold the compost to the local farmers, and it got very popular within the local farmers. And sometimes they now pre-order it, so everything is empty in our FSTP.
This is this, right?
Yes, this is it.
Magically pull this out of thin air? Woohoo! It's a product available. We actually have a booth outside. Doesn't have this, though.
So later on, we went on to do a citywide inclusive sanitation action plan that is also led by the municipality to increase the overall safely managed sanitation coverage of the town. Since 2015, so the safely managed sanitation coverage, it's virtually from 0 to 58 in 5 years. So we're on the verge of another 5 years to assess the safely managed sanitation coverage this year. So if I go through the climate resilient measures, so one of the things is it's treating more than 600 meter cube of fecal sludge each year, which is one of the major issues that was present there, and it's protecting the public health as well as it's protecting the public from the, as a preparation of the floods that is going on around. And it also reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, and it's around 72 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent of greenhouse gases. And it also produces, as I said, it's 24 tons of co-compost is being produced, and it's sold to the local farmers, and they are using it as a replacement of the chemical farmers, which is more intense in terms of complex process. And the treatment plant also harnesses the solar energy, so we are using the energy, solar power, to dry the fecal sludge, treat the sludge, and producing the co-compost. So the maturation chamber is being used as a greenhouse for the co-compost to dry out. And also we have a 4.5 kilowatt hour per day capacity of solar panels that actually power the whole FSTP. And also recently we introduced a mini vacuum tanker, so that is powered, also electric powered. So if I go to the financing of the project, so the initial investment was a blended financing. So there is a 20% of the overall capital investment came from the municipality. So, and also the rest of the came from the project, that is for the construction equipment and vacuum procurement. And recently the municipality has allocated 30% additional lands to, increase the safely managed sanitation coverage for the capacity to increase. In terms of operational cost, it's almost 18,000 USD per year, and it associated with the emptying services and personnel labors of FSTP operation, tools, equipment maintenance required for the FSTP and vacuum services, and the financing for the operational cost comes from the revenue. Almost half of that it comes from the revenue of the FSTP by selling the co-compost and vacuum services, and the rest of that is coming from the fund that is being provided by the municipality, and also currently it's being funded, some of it's being funded by the project. But we have introduced Vacutech, and also we have introduced black soldier fly, so to treat the organic waste and produce larvae. That is a very good fish feed for the fish, very good feed for the fish as well as the poultry. So, so we are slowly moving towards the self-sustainability. So now if I go to the impacts, overall impacts, major impacts of this intervention throughout the years. So in 15 we started, as I said, it's one of the first of its kind in Bangladesh. And after a lot of research and development, we started selling the co-compost after much production in our FSTP. And in 2017, we actually got the green certification from the Department of Environment that it's environmentally safe. And the major thing happened in 2020 when the government of Bangladesh recognized this FSTP model as one of the replicable model for all other municipalities in Bangladesh in the 8th five-year plan of government of the Bangladesh. In 2023, we developed, the municipality actually led the process of developing citywide inclusive sanitation plan for increasing the coverage. And we are currently in the second step of, citywide inclusive action plan. And we are on the process of, making this FSTP as a self-sustainable model so that all other municipalities in Bangladesh can, replicate this model as a self-sustaining model. Thank you. That's all from my end.
Thank you. Thank you. So exciting to hear about what's going on in Bangladesh. And now we will continue our world tour for one final visit to a new continent. We are going to Africa, and we are zeroing in on Kenya. So in Kenya, sanitation is a devolved function that is managed by its 47 county governments. It's regulated at a national level by the Water and Sanitation Services Regulator, WASREB. Nationally, the sewage coverage has plateaued between 15 and 16% over the last 5 years. The impact of the annual investments in sewerage has not improved sewerage coverage due to the high rate of population growth. So no matter what they're doing, it's still being negated because the population's just growing too fast. We all can relate to this, we know this. This implies that a majority of Kenyans are using on-site sanitation solutions, which, if left unchecked, will result in environmental and water pollution with dire consequences. So, what did the regulator ensure? How did the regulator ensure that any form of sanitation adopted by the county governments would ensure equitable access and also be climate resilient? Did they issue a deadline to all county governments to build sewerage infrastructure in their regions within 2 years? Did they disseminate the standards for climate resilient sanitation to the 47 county governments, ensure compliance, and establish a funding mechanism for climate resilient sanitation? Or did they allow the situation to remain as is until the national government fully finances sanitation services from the National Treasury or its development partners? What do we? I hear B, I hear hopefully B. All right, let's see. Okay, no alternatives here. I think we're pretty aligned on at least what we want to see. Survey says B, woohoo! And with that, I get to invite onto the stage Angela Kimani from WASREB. Yeah! Woo-hoo.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Angela Kimani. I work with the Regulator of Water Services in Kenya. The Regulator of Water Services is called WASREB in Kenya. We are a quality of service and economic regulator in both the water and sanitation services. Just to give a brief background about our country is that we have a devolved system of government. So we have the national government and the county governments. The national government is responsible for setting and enforcing standards for water and sanitation, while the county governments are responsible for service provision. So it means sanitation falls squarely on the county governments, but the national government establishes the standards and enforces them. WASREB has been in existence for about 20 years. We celebrated our 20th anniversary last year, so we are young adults. So I think we are fit enough to be here. All right, so I'll take you through what the country has done in ensuring that we have climate-resilient sanitation in the country. Our mandate, like I have said, is setting and ensuring compliance with water and sanitation standards. This cuts across the technical standards, the financing standards, consumer engagement standards, just the whole array of economic and quality of service regulation. We also issue licenses to any water utility that wants to provide water and sanitation services, and we determine the tariffs that are applicable for both water and sanitation. And when we talk about sanitation, it includes the tariffs for sewerage and tariffs for any other form of sanitation. So that covers the on-site sanitation. This is the sanitation situation in the country. Sewerage is less than 20%. You can see we have plateaued at about 16%. So currently we are focusing on climate-resilient, non-sewered sanitation because it is the only way that we are going to be able to cover the Kenyans to access affordable and decent sanitation services, at the same time safeguarding our environment. So what we have done is we have analyzed the various options that we have for on-site sanitation, and different utilities under their county governments have come up with solutions, but there was need to standardize these solutions. So what we have done is that we have looked at how much it costs to actually offer these solutions. And from our analysis, we have established that climate-resilient sanitation costs more than the traditional on-site sanitation solutions. Like you have seen my two colleagues who've gone ahead of me, you've seen the environmental impacts of poorly managed sanitation and what they can do to the environment. So we looked at both the financial, environmental, and the social costs associated with the traditional forms of sanitation. So the regulator focused on having applicable standards for sanitation, which is climate resilient. We looked at the issue of sustainable financing. You all acknowledge that financing sanitation services, and more so climate resilient sanitation, is quite expensive, but the outcome is really good and very, very valuable in terms of value for money. And again, we also have to make sure that all the people are able to access decent forms of sanitation. So these are the regulatory interventions that we have undertaken. We have established sanitation standards. You can see that on my right. We have what qualifies to be an acceptable form of climate-resilient sanitation. Then we also have the minimum standards for design and operation of sanitation system. This is to ensure that it complies to the standards, and also as they're operating them, that we do not pollute the environment and also get the maximum output from the whole value chain. We also have put in disaster-prepared guidelines. We are all talking about the issues of flooding. This is a key thing for us. And we also have a coastline. We have the rising sea level, which of course compromises what was previously used as on-site sanitation in some of these areas. These guidelines are available on the WASREB website, www.wasreb.go.ke. You can be able to have a look at them. And then the elephant in the room has been the financing. The approach that the regulator takes is that we apply cost recovery tariffs, in that the users of the services are the ones who pay for the construction, the operation and maintenance of the systems. So in the country currently we have the water and sewerage tariffs. These are charged based on consumption. So you pay for the volume of water that you've consumed, and also the sewerage service for the treatment of your waste. Recently we have introduced sanitation charge. This is applicable to all water customers. So whether you have a sewerage connection or not, you get to pay for the sanitation fee. We have a sanitation levy that is in the law, where we charge a maximum of 5% of your water bill. So this is paid by all water users in the country, and this is being used to develop and maintain climate-resilient sanitation systems. In addition, the country, our policies allow for the recovery of loans. So any loans that have been used for the design, construction, and operation of sewerage infrastructure or sanitation infrastructure can be recouped from the tariffs. So you find our tariffs are cost reflective in that aspect, and it has enabled our water utilities to be able to access financing from commercial banks, blended financing, and resort-based financing, and all the other available forms of financing that are available in the market. And this is paid for back through the tariffs, the consumer tariffs. In addition, one of the mandates of the water services regulator in the country is to track progress in the water and sanitation targets. And the regulator has been tracking access to on-site sanitation. We do this through an annual report. It's called Impact Report. I'm sure some of you in the water sector have heard about it. It's an annual publication where we give information on the sector's progress in terms of ensuring access to sanitation. So we track this on an annual basis, although we also have a monthly reporting module so that we're able to see how the utilities are progressing in their various counties. And then recently we were able to develop the sanitation key performance indicator. This was in response to the climate resilience issues that were coming about, because traditionally we used to measure sanitation in terms of access to improved sanitation. But we realized that the issue of climate resilience has to come in for us to be able to deal well with this issue. So what we have done is each of the utilities which are under the county governments are required to report on the sanitation KPI. If you look at what is on the screen, we can see we have issues of safely managed sanitation. The aspects on the left, you'll actually see them. It's about the issue of safety, wastewater management, how do you deal with the wastewater, what governance structures have you established, do you have a sanitation policy in place? Then we look at how you deal with your fecal sludge. Do you recycle? What do you do with it? Do you discharge to the environment before treatment? Those are issues that we look at. Then we also look at sustainable financing for the service, as well as customer engagement. So this wholesome view was very critical to us, because we were interested in seeing that whatever climate resilient sanitation aspects that you take on as a utility are actually meeting all these criteria and are able to serve the common good of the customers as well as for the utility, because of the issues of sustainability. So we've been able to pilot this in a number of utilities. They're listed there. This is progressing well. We have some which are ahead of the other, like Nakuru and Ruiru. These are 2 cities in the country. So they're already adopting this standard. And once we roll it out from this year, because last year was when we launched it, we are going to put this as part of our key performance indicators. Currently, we report on 9 key performance indicators, but now our sanitation key performance indicator changes to take into account the climate resilience issues. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I actually bring our game to a close. I hope you had fun. I hope you're enlightened. You're ready to really think about this in a new way. Woo. And with that, we get to actually now review with a couple of pundits and experts how they receive these different types of projects and how it could be implemented by different banks and what different organizations need to think about. So with this, I would like to invite to the stage someone who I think is well known to many of you, Cecilia Sharp, Director of Water and Sanitation at UNICEF. Thank you. I've got enough. It permeates. Yes. And at the same time, I would like to bring up on the screen, joining us from Bolivia, we have Franz Rojas, Head of Water for CAF, who, as you've known, has been very, very engaged in this process, has financed at least one of the projects related to here, and is well-placed to have this conversation. I love to share with you, I'm very excited about having these 2 different individuals with us, representing very different perspectives on the situation, right? Franz is with CAF. They are a development bank with a regional focus, right? UNICEF works in as many countries in the world as they possibly can as part of a UN agency with a mandate to deliver assistance and leave no child behind. Right? They're both very engaged in sanitation. They're both very concerned and have this as a high priority. So really listening and understanding the different players in the room and how they react and what they can do in terms of climate mitigation and adaptation, I think will help all of us, will certainly enlighten me in any case. So Cecilia, because you are physically here, I'll go ahead and start with you. You heard 3 different types of projects and interventions. From a UNICEF perspective, which ones of these could you really adopt and replicate across the UNICEF network, and which ones couldn't you, and why not?
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. And first of all, I just want to thank the presenters for these extremely energizing presentations. And I think they were so much to the point and really got my brain working. So I had prepared something maybe different, but I will try to definitely go to the spot on your questions. So first of all, we heard 3 presentations, and I think they were all to the point, dealing with both the health impacts that we need to see, the more general expectations we have on dealing with sanitation. And they were all departing somehow of not having safely managed, somehow a little bit looking at what can safely managed be, and then what does climate resilient actually mean? And then how can we also look at all the different benefits from having access to sanitation. So for me, it was really engaging and also challenging to pick and choose among these presentations. So I think they were all dealing with climate resilience, aren't they? And they were also dealing with finance, and they were able to attract finance. So very good. So just to look at all the 3 of them, the Panama case was very clear. It was engaging in urban solutions. It was big-scale financing, big-scale infrastructure, and big-scale planning. Working with IFIs directly. And from a UNICEF perspective, we are all happy, but that would probably not be the one that we would be pursuing. But I'm looking at my CAF colleague and probably would say, maybe this is a program for you or for somebody else. When it comes to Bangladesh, I think that was the most engaging seller we had here at the moment. For me, we do support small-scale initiatives like the one in Bangladesh, which is all about reducing the spread of fecal contamination, and it's looking at models for pit emptying, but it was also one of the ones which are looking at how do we engage with livelihood, the sanitation products, etc. And these are models that UNICEF definitely would be interested in engaging in more, because they are working on circular economy solutions. I think that was amazing. And lastly, the Kenya sanitation county-managed solutions, again, working with regulators is critical, I believe. I think you do a fantastic job. And for me, that's absolutely something where UNICEF could be a partner to the government and work, and also look at sustainable financing models for this. So I mean, and I think in the end, I might have a question there, though, and that is how does it go, and is the levy enough? And I mean, there are many questions raised, but definitely super interesting program that I think we can look at scaling.
Okay. And now I get to turn to you, Franz. We are so excited to have you here with us in spirit and online. Can you share from the CAF perspective, as a development bank, which ones of these you have or would support, and which ones might be a little bit out of your scope, and why?
Thank you, Leslie, for this opportunity, and hope to see you and join you in person next year, that I was accustomed to visit. Yeah, when we have the 3 cases, I think the case of the wastewater treatment plant in Panama is not only the one that we might consider or not, because we actually have involved in it. And we see it as an iconic example, not only in the region, but globally. And I would like to highlight 2 points regarding the mitigation and resilient approach in this case. As Maria Fernanda mentioned, the energy cogeneration, but also the potential use of sludge as a soil enhancer. For this purpose, thermal hydrolysis technology has been installed to improve the quality of the sludge. So we have the opportunity to combine not only energy recovery, but also the sludge treatment as a soil enhancer. So I think these are cases that we want to promote in Latin America and the Caribbean. In fact, we are working on something similar in other plants, such as the Huangarcucho plant in Ecuador, as well as others in our list of wastewater treatment plants. On the other hand, the project of Bangladesh is interesting as it applies to on-site sanitation systems, in the opposite. Honestly, I have not seen many fecal sludge treatment plants in Latin America. I have seen many in Africa and Asia, but in Latin America, I don't have seen many, perhaps because the management approach in this region focuses on further developing sewerage systems. And you can see the many national sanitation plans of different countries promotes sewerage systems, but I think would be interesting to put into the discussion also on-site sanitation systems, but with the importance to close the sanitation cycle, right? And these are the options that are feasible to small cities and also peri-urban zones, I would say, in Latin America. Because, and then in this sense, it could be part of a peri-urban or intermediate city sanitation program that could certainly be financed by CAF, because we're interested in closing this sanitation cycle. And not the ones that only ends in septic tanks or pit latrines, but in safely disposing of sludge, preferably reusing it with the appropriate sanitary precautions. And regarding the third case, it's interesting to know that the regulatory agency has been developing initiatives to support utilities in integrating climate resilience into project plans. And I think that will be an opportunity for the different regulators in Latin America that can have also support from technical assistance from CAF to develop these new initiatives to include or to incorporate climate resilient sanitation into the regulatory approach.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Actually, I had one question and you kind of got at it, but I wanted to just sort of clarify it for myself. One of the things that you did just highlight now, Franz, is that at the moment, the master plans that the governments in the, across Latin America and the Caribbean provide are very focused on networked sewered systems. Do you think that's because they've decided that that is the only method available, or that's just the trend that they've done for, time immemorial, and they haven't had the opportunity or been exposed to thinking about this differently? Because we know that across South America, for example, the Andes and a lot of there are so many mountainous communities where, piped networks and piped systems might be really, really challenging and harder, and we might be looking at some of these sort of non-sewered systems for solutions. So I wondered what you thought, if it's a matter of exposure, or if it's really the result of long-term science and understanding in the region.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of different aspects, as you have mentioned. One is the tradition, and the other is the coverage, that it's not so low that compared to other regions in terms of sewerage, but also that governments have been working more and feel more comfortable working with sewage systems and sanitation plants, and also with decentralized wastewater treatment plants. But in fact, in others could be a possibility, especially as you have mentioned, in small cities that lack a high coverage of sewerage, and then could be an opportunity. But also we have to work on the management model, because it's not easy. I recall an experience in Santa Cruz, for instance, in peri-urban areas, that another multilateral development bank was working on decentralized solutions with on-site sanitations and the vacuum trucks, but the management model was a little bit complicated because the interaction between these private companies with the main water utility. So I think it's not easy, it's possible, but we have to work on it to combine and try to see if both can fit into the region.
Great, thank you. It just popped into my mind as you were speaking. I know I am cognizant of time, so I guess I would like to again take advantage of having both these types of institutions represented here. And one thing that is very clear is that both CAF and UNICEF work really closely with governments. Although the different departments, the different ministries of governments probably differ. I would guess that you, Franz, work with the Ministry of Finance, and Cecilia, you and your colleagues are more in constant contact with ministries of health. What more, when you think about these three different types of projects, if you were to convince a government to undertake something like this, any of them, what more would you need to sell these projects to your government counterparts? Or what would you need to see from those government counterparts, to replicate this type of work? Cecilia, would you like to take that one first?
Yeah, I could give it a try. No, definitely. I mean, first of all, just to say that we are a partner to the government, obviously, and UNICEF play different roles as well. So sometimes we are implementer, sometimes we are convener and bringing people together. Sometimes we work on models and stuff. So just to say that we can have different types of hats, and Minister of Health, Minister of Water, obviously, depending on where we have the sanitation solutions lying. So what more would I need to know, or metrics and so on? I think we need to recognize somehow for the type of models that we are working on, which it's what you said many times, the on-site sanitation solutions. We need to somehow recognize, I believe, that the households are the main investors in sanitation, and I think we need to recognize that. So to me, I would need to know a little bit more about financing mechanisms that are needing to support households to move up the sanitation ladder and to invest in their sanitation solution. And then how we can support the sanitation markets to be available so that are products for households to invest in, to build new toilets or to replace or upgrade their solutions that they have to become climate resilient. And then I think, again, on operation and maintenance models, when we come to on-site solutions, which is also household solution to somehow, it would be interesting to understand the affordability of these solutions for poorer and more vulnerable households, which is where UNICEF works mainly. I mean, we are the child rights organization, so we look at households and ensuring that households have sanitation. So maybe those two areas would maybe interesting to understand a little bit more about.
That makes total sense to me. Franz, what about you?
Well, just a small clarification. CAF works with ministries of finance, as you have said, but usually projects originate from the sectoral ministry, environment, water, or the Ministry of Health. So we interact with both, with the sectoral ministry, but at the end, with the Ministry of Finance. And regarding the question of the decision to go or not to go, I think most multilateral banks have ESG standards, environmental, social, and governance safeguards. And the countries, the governments, are the ones that usually present their projects, which are then evaluated to see if they meet the requirements. So we conduct a due diligence, and the credit guarantee mainly comes from the countries, the sovereign guarantee, although project sustainability criteria are also evaluated. Such as whether the tariff can cover operation and maintenance costs in the case the investment is subsidized by the government, or its social viability in terms of community acceptance, as well as some other criteria. And if the borrower is not the government, but the water and sanitation company, for instance, its financial capacity and institutional stability are also verified, as well as technical, institutional, and social sustainability criteria. And my final point on how to sell the idea, I think the measures to make sanitation climate resilient are diverse and can be applied gradually. So it may be perhaps easier to start with a set of adaptation measures, and in the case of larger projects, to incorporate measures that can also address measures for mitigation to climate change. Because we don't have to forget that we are in an environment where governments also have urgent challenges to provide thousands or millions of people with basic access to sanitation. So I think both trends have to go along.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I appreciate the extra level of detail. And again, I think it's quite important, right? We've heard how UNICEF can be quite more suggestive, right, in terms of, and sort of steer the governments in ways. And we hear also, you have to apply a very critical, business, lens to what the government is suggesting to you. And does it align with the different types of criteria and standards that you've set up? And I think that that's really important for all of us in the room to understand. We're all working towards the same thing, but we all have different ways and different sort of methods of communication and sort of the objectives that we have to hit. And I think that's really, really important. And we can also work together. But we also have to be remembering that, again, it's not just one cookie cutter, and what speaks to and resonates with UNICEF is different to CAF or some of its development bank partners. And I think this conversation has really helped to elucidate that, and I'm really thankful. I guess before I close this panel, just asking if either of you have any overarching remarks, and maybe I didn't ask you the question that gave you the chance to say what you wanted to say.
I think I have two very small. Yes. And then, of course, coming from UNICEF, and today launching the new data from JMP.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so now we're at 3.4 billion people without safely managed sanitation. So just to say, evidence, data, and monitoring, extremely important to understand what we are doing, are we doing the right things, and how are we progressing on climate resilience. So I think that was my first point. And lastly, I wanted to started to talk about working together. And just to say, the partnership models to make this happening at country level is so important. And I just want to thank everybody who's part of the Climate Resilient Sanitation Coalition again, where I really see all of us aligning in our thinking, our models, and moving the sanitation agenda forward. So I think that's an amazing partnership where we align our thinking with governments, how to support and how to move and position climate resilient sanitation in the global agenda.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Franz, over to you.
Yeah, just a couple of words. I think the climate sanitation resilience approach is not so complicated as some could imagine. I think it's feasible, and it could start from as simple measures like to see and avoid that the wastewater treatment plant should be in a flood-prone area, or to have the inclusion of energy generators or in case of the electrical system fails, and others. So I think incorporating different measures in our sanitation projects, we could advance into climate resilience sanitation and climate resilient sanitation. So I think the invitation to all of us to try to mobilize this approach into our projects. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I think I can invite everybody in the room to thank both Franz and Cecilia for sharing their different perspectives. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And with that, we move into the closing segment, and you get to hear from somebody, not myself, and I will cede the stage to my colleague, Andres Hueso Gonzalez, WaterAid. A good colleague and excellent expert.
Thank you. I wanted some music also to come in, but fortunately we don't have one. I want to thank all the participants because all the presenters, because they've been very disciplined with time. So we actually have 5 minutes for in case there's any question from the audience, either to the presenters or to the panelists or to any one of us. Barbara, please. Please take the mic and...
Yeah, thank you. I really wanted to thank the 3 cases and for you guys to convening these 3 cases. My observation is that sometimes the projects are easier to understand and they're really inspirational projects, but I really want to shout out to WSREP because I think regulatory structuring that creates incentives and creates a normality about doing things in a really sustainable, thoughtful way, and linking that, acknowledging that there's a cost and acknowledging that the costs are what they are. I don't think we should underestimate what a big challenge that is for a regulator. Regulators come under a lot of pressure in the reverse way, and I think WSREP really deserve a huge amount of our appreciation for what they've achieved. I think it's a really fabulous story. Would encourage people to look into it. The one other thing I wanted to say is about cost. We all talked a lot about the costs and we saw some very big numbers, but all of these cases influence and provide services to very large numbers of people. And actually, if you divide those numbers by the numbers of people who are benefiting, they're not that big, those numbers. They look scary when they're in the millions, but you know, the Panama case is potentially going to serve 1.5 million people in the end, cost 250 million. Do the math, it's not a big number. So I think those are my two comments. One is big shout out to regulators, and the second thing is, I think as a sector, of course we need to find the money, but I think we have to have a narrative about the fact that this is actually a very cost-effective intervention that we can make.
Thank you. Any other? Martin? Yeah. Maybe introduce yourself. Yeah, sorry, I should.
Professor Barbara Evans, University of Leeds over there. Martin Gamble, formerly of the World Bank, now a consultant. What struck me about the three cases, very diverse and very different, is something we've been talking about. If we want climate resilient sanitation, we need to... The examples we saw are about safely managed sanitation. It's about managing sanitation safely, and that will give us a huge advantage when we have climate impact. So I think that's an interest. We've been saying that, but it was very clear from these examples, whether it's for the regulator, the on-site and the FSM, or the sewers and the wastewater treatment. It's about achieving what our SDG wants us to achieve. Thank you.
Thanks. Is it Daniel? I cannot see yeah, Daniel there.
Yes, I'm raising my hand on behalf of my boss, who has a very small comment to make about
Introduce yourself also, please.
No, just a reaction to one of the first slides.
Can you introduce yourself?
So, sorry. Kim Anderson, SCI.
Thank you.
Nice to be here, and a really good session. I wasn't expecting to talk, but Daniel made me. No, just a reaction to some of the first slides on the different key things about key impacts from climate change on sanitation system. And just saying, I've been working a lot in Bolivia, and yeah, of course, there you don't have sea rise, etc. But actually, wildfire is becoming a really big threat, and there's wildfires across the country. And these are actually burning off water supply system, the often plastic pipe system. So becoming a quite big threat to communities and individual households in the countryside. So just a note on that. Thanks.
Thank you. I see a hand there.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pavin Gala. I'm with the World Vision, the Global Director for WASH. One of the first things I just want to appreciate is the fact that we are having a sanitation discussion. You know, I am very cognizant as a person, as somebody who works in the WASH sector, that we continue to have gaps in sanitation, you know, and so this, just as a start, is really, really good to have had that conversation. The other bit I just wanted to appreciate, especially in looking at the different presentations, and also just the preliminary bit in terms of what are the opportunities around adaptation and mitigation, is the fact that you could see the different sort of scales, you know, and that's what we need. You know, we are in different places where the issue is about what scale can you look at? Is it at national scale? Is it at community level? And that we do need a lot more of those examples, because yes, there is a gap on sanitation, a big question around the impact or what we could be doing around climate mitigation and adaptation, but we need a lot more of those examples. So that was really appreciated, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I think we are out of time, but I would encourage you also to talk to Yasin or to Angela. They are here, so after the session, or to any of us, we're also happy to chat, but they probably have more interesting things to say than I have, so talk to them. And now, before we close, I mean, this was a game show, so what's a game show without an award? So there is an award, but because the technology wasn't with us necessarily, we need to make it a trust-based award. So I need you all to stand up first, unless you want to not get an award, and you can stay to that seat, but it's a very good one. So whoever got all the 100% of the Mentimeter questions right can stand up. The rest, be honest, and sit down. Wow, very honest. Whoever guessed the three options, like the three challenges in the game show, whoever guessed what the real example was, can stand up, otherwise sit down. So if you guess for the 3 scenarios, if you guess the actual intervention right.
When we asked A, B, or C.
For all of the 3. Yeah.
If you got all 3 of them. You were right all 3 at the time.
Great. Francisek, you are not eligible, sorry. So great. So we have a winner. Just to check my last question was going to be, who is a great gardener? Are you a good gardener? Do you like gardening? Anyway, you are still going to get a bag of compost from Shakipur as the award. So you can find someone that's as a present from your conference in Stockholm, you can give them a bit of compost. Great. Great. So just to wrap up some quick reflections, I think Franz at the beginning already highlighted that the importance of climate resilient sanitation, why it is important. But I think the beauty of the session is that we also heard, or we also see that it is possible, it's something it's doable. And we really had 3 great examples from Maria Fernanda, Yasin, and Angela. And they were different geographies, different challenges, very different solutions, but I think there were also some commonalities. And I would highlight in terms of the adaptation. So the 3 make a great contribution to public health. They make the cities or the areas where they are operating better prepared in the face of floods or other related shocks. And they are also using, trying to reuse the end products from sanitation to unlock these benefits from the circular economy. And they are all, to different extent, exploring ways to minimize emissions in the operations. And finally, they are also working at the systems level, so trying to change some of the institutional aspects, trying to figure out the financing, regulation, etc. So yeah, 3 great exceptional experiences. I think these are some of the pioneers of climate resilient sanitation. But we actually don't want them to be exceptional. We want them to be common. We want this to be the mainstream in the sector. And we have seen that, yeah, unfortunately, we need money more money to be able to mainstream it. And it's not easy in the current environment. And particularly if we are to make sure that we also reach those who need it most, as Cecilia was highlighting. And the good news is that tomorrow we will try to crack the financing nut, or a very small part of it, I'm afraid. Yeah. So we have a specific and hands-on workshop trying to provide an overview of financing options for climate resilient sanitation with a focus on the Green Climate Fund. Apologies for those who are online, because this will be an on-site only workshop. There will be also a few seats, so those of you come early if you want to get in. But we are going to add the link to the Green Climate Fund annex to this session so that those online can access it. And if we manage to get access to your emails through the system, then we will send you the details once the training materials once they are ready. And that's all from my end. I wanted to thank the participants online and here for your engagement and participation. To fellow organizers, thank you very much for being part of it. The technical team and the volunteers, thanks. Yeah, enjoy the session. Thank you.